And shalom on the Sabbath day. Welcome to the Philadelphia assemblies. Today is the 25th day of the first month of the year 5780, according to how we discern the calendar. And again, if you haven't watched us before, we keep the full moon as the new moon per Psalms 81 verse 3. Okay? And today is also the 7th day of the Feast of Weeks. We started last on Sunday, which it is always on a Sunday, the day following the 7th day Sabbath, following the Passover week, okay, or the Passover. And we know that that's talking about the Sabbath. It's not talking about the holy convocation of unleavened bread. That's talking about following the Sabbath. That's why we start our count on the wave sheaf, okay, which is the first day of the thing. It's also in the New Testament called the first of the Sabbath, but it's according to Leviticus 23, it's a holy convocation, okay? It's not an actual Sabbath, okay? But it's still a holy convocation, just like the first and last days of unleavened bread, okay? And even the Passover, the 14th day, is a form of a holy convocation, okay? And there's reasons we've went over that in our lessons. But today is also the first of the Sabbath, as we count 7 Sabbath days after the wave sheaf or the Feast of First Fruits, counting down towards Shabbat or Shavuot, which is Pentecost in the New Testament from the Greek. Okay, but again, that means count 50. Okay, so that's where we're at. That's our timing today. And probably spent a lot of time on that again, but we're going to continue to count down as we're here towards Shabbat or Shavuot, Pentecost. And now we're going to continue our expository teaching that we're doing. And we're in Second Kings, okay, chapter 6. And we're going to go for about an hour. Usually that's 3 or 4 chapters, okay? But we're going to let the time be our guide. We try to keep our lessons all around an hour. That's quite long for some and short for a lot of others, but we'd rather kind of be in the middle on that and keep people's attention span as long as we can. Well, before we get started, we're going to turn towards the east, okay, towards the rising of the sun, where the temple was and where it's prophesied to be again. Almighty Father Yahuwah, we praise you in all things. We praise you for our health, Father, and we ask that you keep that hedge of protection around us, all of your saints, Father, and believers, and all of those out there, Father. But we just ask that you would protect and stay this pandemic or this plague that's upon the whole world. We ask that you would stop it, Father, if it be in your will. But if not, Father, we ask that you protect the saints, Father. Keep them from harm in this pandemic. Help us to stay inside our houses as they did it at the Exodus when the first Passover happened. Father, help this to pass over us at this point in time. And Father, those that are sick, we ask for their healing. Those that have lost loved ones, we ask for their comfort. We ask blessings upon the whole earth, but and most obviously upon your believers, Father. We ask that you would anoint each one of us this day, Father. Give us that extra unction of that Ruach HaKodesh, that Holy Spirit of promise, and help teach us all things as we go to your word. We ask it all in your precious Son, Yahushua's name. Amen. Okay. Let's just go ahead and jump right in here. Chapter 6, verse 1. And the Ben, or the sons of the prophets, said unto Elisha, Behold, now the place where we dwell with you is narrow for us, or confining to us. Okay? Verse 2. Let us go, we beg you, unto Jordan, and take from there every man a beam, and let us make us a place there where we may dwell. And he answered, Go ye, or go ahead, Verse 3, and one said, be content, I beg you, and go with your servants. And he answered, I will go. Verse 4, so he went with them, and when they came to Jordan, they cut down wood. But as one was felling a beam, the axe head came off into the water, fell off into the water, and he cried and said, alas, master, for it was borrowed. Verse 6, and the man of Elohim said, where fell it, or where did it fall? And he showed him the place, and he cut down a stick, or he cut a stick, and cast it in there, and the iron did float. It says swim in your King James, it floated. Verse 7, therefore said he, take it up to you, and he put it out his hand and took it. Then the king of Syria warred against Israel, and took counsel with his servants, saying, insomuch or inasmuch a place, or in such a place shall be my camp. And the king of Israel sent to the place which the man of Elohim told him and warned him of, and severe times now were one. Okay, let's see. Okay, I'm going to read that again because I misinterpreted that. And he said, and it says, and guarded himself there several times. That's how that would have been a better translation. In verse 10, it says, and the king of Israel sent to the place which the man of Elohim told him and warned him to guard himself, and warned him of it several times. That would have been the correct translation there. Okay. Verse 11. Therefore, the heart of the king of Syria was enraged for this thing. And he called his servants and said unto them, will ye not show me which of us is the king of Israel? Verse 12. And one of his servants said, neither or none, my master, O king, but Elisha, the prophet that is in Israel, tells the king of Israel the words that you speak in your privacy. Okay, it says in your bedchamber in the King James, but that's just a place where you're not with anybody generally. So that's what they're saying. They're saying where he speaks in his privacy. Okay, verse 13, and he said, go and spy out, or spy where he is, that I may send and bring him. And it was told him, saying, behold, he is in Dothan. Therefore sent he there horses and chariots and great host, and they came by night and surrounded the city all around. And when the servant of the man of Elohim was risen early, or when he got up early and gone out, behold, an army surrounded the city, both with horses and chariots. And his servants said unto him, alas, my master, what shall we do? Okay. Verse 16, and he answered, fear not, for they be with us, that they that be with us are more than they that be with them. 17, and Elisha prayed and said, Yahuwah, I pray you, open his eyes that he may see. And Yahuwah opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw, and behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire round about Elisha. That tells you what was going on. There is a whole order of malachim, okay, or malachim, or angels from on high, okay, that's surrounding it. And verse 19, and Elisha said, or Elisha, 18. Okay, 18, and when they came down to him, you're correct, Elisha prayed unto Yahuwah, and said, smite this people, or strike this people, I beg you, with blindness. And he struck them with blindness according to the word of Elisha. Keep giving you the old English pronunciation. And Elisha said unto them, this is not the way, neither is this the city. Follow me, and I will bring you to the man who you seek. But he led them to Samaria. And it came to pass, when they were come unto Samaria, that Elisha said unto Yahuwah, open the eyes of these men, that they may see. And Yahuwah opened their eyes, and they saw. And behold, they were in the midst of Samaria. And the king of Israel said unto Elisha, when he saw them, my father, shall I strike them? Shall I strike them? 22. And he answered, you shall not smite them or strike them. Would you smite those whom, or strike those whom you have taken captive with your sword and with your bow? Set bread and water before them, or set food and water before them. It's not just talking about bread. The word food here in Hebrew is talking about food in general, not just bread. And water before them, that they may eat and drink and go to their master. Verse 23, and he prepared great provision, or a great feast in English, for them. And when they had eaten and drank, he sent them away, and they went to their master. So the bands of Syria came no more into the land of Israel. Verse 24, and it came to pass after this, that Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, gathered all his army and went up and besieged or attacked Samaria, which we know that the northern tribes would have been in that area. Okay, that's Israel too, but okay, would have been in Samaria. Verse 26, and as the king of 25, and there was a great famine in Samaria, and behold, they besieged or attacked it until a donkey's head was sold for 80 pieces of silver, and the fourth part of a cab of a dove's dung, for 5 pieces of silver. Verse 26, and as the king of Israel was passing by upon the wall, there cried a woman unto him, saying, help my master, O king. 27, and he said, if Yahuwah do not help, or if Yahuwah does not help you, why shall I help you? Okay. Out of the barn floor, or where shall I help you out of the barn floor, or out of the wine press, which is a place, obviously, of being under pressure. Verse 28, and the king said unto her, what is the matter with you? And she answered, this woman said unto me, give your ben, or son, that we may eat him today, and we will eat my son tomorrow. We just talked about this was a great famine. It was so bad that they were actually considering and eating their young. And it says it'll be that bad or worse in the Great Tribulation. So keep that in mind. It's not anywhere near that bad. We don't have a famine anywhere to that extent. Okay, so remember how bad it can get when we judge on how bad it will be during the Great Tribulation. Okay, verse 29, so we boiled my son and did eat him. And I said unto her on the next day, give your son, or ben, that we may eat him. And she hath hid her ben, or son. And it came to pass, when the king heard the words of the woman, that he tore his clothes, and he passed by upon the wall. And the people looked, and behold, he had sackcloth beneath or upon his flesh, all over. Verse 31. Then he said, Elohim, do so and more also to me, if the head of Elisha, the ben of Shaphat, shall stand on him this day. Verse 32. And Elisha sat in his house, And the elders sat with him, and the king sent a man from before him, but before the Malach, that's singular messenger here, okay? So, but before the Malach, and I say that so that you understand the word Malach or messenger is always consistent in the Hebrew, singular Malach, Malachim, when it's plural, and a lot of times it'll be translated angel, but it's always Malach or Malachim in Hebrew. A lot of doctrines are tied around that. Okay, came to him, he said to the elders, see you how this Ben, or son of the murdered, hath sent to take away my head? Look, when the messenger comes, shut the door and hold fast at the door. Is not the sound of his master's feet behind him? Question. So in other words, listen, is that not the sounds of his master's feet behind him? Verse 33, and while he yet talked with them, behold, the Malach, or messenger, came down unto him, and he said, behold, this evil is of Yahuwah. What should I wait for Yahuwah, or why should I wait for Yahuwah any longer? He's saying this evil thing is of Yahuwah. Verse chapter 7. Then Elisha said, hear ye the word of Yahuwah. Thus saith Yahuwah. This is the same way that Malach, the Malach of Yahuwah, or the Ruach HaKodesh, announces, thus saith Yahuwah, and the same way a prophet would announce before he speaks. So he said, thus saith Yahuwah, tomorrow about this time shall the measure of fine flour be sold for a shekel, and 2 measures of barley for a shekel in the gate of Samaria. Verse 2, then a master on whose hand the king leaned answered the man of Elohim and said, behold, if Yahuwah would make windows in the Shamayim, or in heaven, might this thing be? In other words, why might this be? And then he says, and he said, behold, you shall see it with your own eyes, but shall not eat thereof. Verse 3, and there were 4 leprous men at the entering in of the gate, and they said one to another, why sit we here until we die? Why are we just going to sit here and die? Okay. Verse 4, if we say, we will enter into the city, then the famine is in the city, and we shall die there. And if we still sit here, we die also. Now therefore, come and let us surrender unto the army of the Syrians. If they shall save us alive, we shall live, and if they kill us, we shall die. They're going to die anyway. That's what they just said. So why shall we not surrender to the Syrians? They might save us and we might live. Verse 5, and they rose up in the twilight, or when it was still dark, to go into the camp of the Syrians. And when they were come to the outskirts of the camp of Syria, behold, there was no man there. For Yahuwah had made the army of the Syrians to hear a noise of chariots and a noise of horses, even the noise of a great army. And they said one to another, lo, the king of Israel hath hired against us the king of the Hittites and the kings of the Egyptians to come upon us. Therefore they arose and fled in the twilight, while it was still dark, and left their tents and their horses and their donkeys, even the camp as it was, and fled for their life. And when these lepers came to the outskirts of the camp, they went into one tent and did eat and drink, and carried from there silver and gold and clothing, and went and hid it, and came again and entered into another tent, and carried from there also, and went and hid it. Then they said one to another, we didn't do well this day is a day of good tidings, and we hold our peace. If we stay till the morning light, some mischief will come upon us. Now therefore come, that we may go and tell the king's household. So they had taken from two different tents, and they said, hey, we got enough here. We better get out of here before this turns bad, because what we've done is not good. Okay? So let me interpret a little bit there. Verse 10. So they came and called unto the porter, or unto the gatekeeper of the city, and they told them, saying, we came to the camp of the Syrians, and behold, there was no man there, neither voice of a man, but horses tied and donkeys tied, and the tents as they were. And he called the gatekeepers, and they told it to the king's house inside. And the king arose in the night and said unto his servants, I will now show you what the Syrians have done to us. They know that we are hungry, therefore they are gone out of the camp to hide themselves in a field, or to set up to ambush us, saying, when they come out of the city, we shall catch them alive and get into the city, which is not at all what was going on, okay? But he was just making an assumption because he was afraid. And one of his servants answered and said, let some take, I beg you, 5 of the horses that remain, which are left in the city. Behold, this is added all the way almost to the end. Behold, they are as all the multitude of Israel that are left in it. Behold, I say, they are even as all the multitude of the Israelites that are consumed. And let us send and see. That's what these men said. Verse 14. They took therefore 2 chariot horses, and the king sent after the army of the Assyrians, saying, go and see. And they went after them unto Jordan, and lo, all the way was full of garments and vessels which the Syrians had cast away in their haste. And the Malachim, okay, the same word they would say, translate as angels, and this is obviously messengers, and that's why they've translated it this way, turned and told the king. 16. And the people went out and plundered the tents of the Syrians, so a measure of fine flour was sold for a shekel, just as Yahuwah had prophesied, or Yahuwah had used Elisha to prophesy this. Measure of fine flour was sold for a shekel, and 2 measures of barley for a shekel, according to the word of Yahuwah. Verse 17. And the king appointed the master on whose hand he leaned to have the charge of the city of the gate, and the people trampled upon him in the gate, and he died, as the man of Elohim had said, who spake when the king came down to him. And it came to pass, as the man of Elohim had spoken, the king saying, 2 measures of barley for a shekel, and a measure of fine flour for a shekel, shall be tomorrow, but this time in the gate of Samaria. And that master answered the man of Elohim and said, now behold, if Yahuwah should make windows in the Shamayim, in Hebrew, or in heaven, okay, might such a thing be? In other words, that's the only way, is if Yahuwah made windows in heaven. And we know that he can do that. He can pour blessings out like that. If we obey his voice, he will do that. And tithing is part of that. Okay? And Yahuwah answered the man of Elohim and said, now behold, if Yahuwah should make windows in the Shamayim, might such a thing be? And he said, behold, you shall see it with your own eyes, but shall not eat thereof. Verse 20, and so it fell out, or so it happened unto him, for the people trampled upon him in the gate, and he died, just as prophesied. Chapter 8. Then spake Elisha unto the woman whose ben or son he had restored to life, saying, arise and go you and your household, and stay where wheresoever you cannot stay, for Yahuwah hath called for a famine, and it shall also come upon the land 7 years. So he's prophesying of this famine to this woman that he rose her son from the dead earlier. Okay? He had prayed to Yahuwah. Obviously, Yahuwah rose him from the dead, but at the request of Elisha, the prophet. Okay, that's who he's referring to. Verse 2, and the woman arose and did after the saying of the man of Elohim, and she went with her household and stayed or lived in the land of the Philistines 7 years. And it came to pass at the 7 years end that the woman returned out of the land of the Philistines, and she went forth to beg unto the king for her house and for her land. Verse 4, and the king talked with Gehazi, the servant of the man of Elohim, saying, tell me, I beg you, all the great things that Elisha hath done. Verse 5, and it came to pass, as he was telling the king how he had restored a dead body to life, that behold, the woman whose son, or ben here in Hebrew, for her house and for her land, and Gehazi said, my master, O king, this is the woman, and this is her ben, her son, who Elisha restored to life. And when the king asked the woman, she told him. So the king appointed unto her a certain officer, saying, restore all that was hers, excuse me, and all the fruits of the field since the day that she left the land, even until now. And Elisha came to Damascus, and Ben-hadad, the king of Syria, was sick, and it was told him, saying, the man of Elohim is come here. And the king said unto Hazael, take a present in your hand, and go meet the man of Elohim, and inquire of Yahuwah by him, saying, shall I recover of this disease? In other words, I'm sick, shall I recover from this disease? So Hazael went to meet him, and took a present with him, even of every good thing of Damascus, 40 camels burden. In other words, 40 camels, 40 things, stuff that could be carried by 40 camels. Okay, stuff that could be carried by 40 camels. And came and stood before him. Presents he was ready to bestow. And said, your Ben, or your son Ben-hadad, king of Syria, has sent me to you, saying, shall I recover of this disease? And Elisha said unto him, go say unto him, you may certainly recover. However, Yahuwah hath showed me that he shall surely die. Okay, and he stared at him steadfastly until he was ashamed, and the man of Elohim wept. And Hazael said, why do you weep, master? And he answered, because I know the evil that you will do unto the Ben of Israel, or the sons of Israel. Their strongholds will you set on fire, and their young men will you slay with the sword, and will dash their sons and rip up their women with their little ones, or their babies. 3. And Hazael said, but what is your servant, a dog, that he should do this great thing? And Elisha answered, Yahuwah has showed me that you shall be king over Syria. So he departed from Elisha and came to his master, who said to him, what said Elisha to you? Or what did Elisha say to you? And he answered, he told me that you should surely get well. And verse 15, and it came to pass on the morrow, or the next day, that he took a thick cloth and dipped it in water and spread it on his face, so that he died. And Hazael reigned in his stead, as prophesied. And in the 5th year of Joram, the son of Ahab, king of Israel, Jehoshaphat, being then king of Yehuda, Jehoram, the ben of Jehoshaphat, king of Yehuda, began to reign, or became king. 32 or 32 years old was he when he began to reign, or when he was made king, and he reigned 8 years in Jerusalem. 17. 32 years old was he when he began to reign, and he reigned 8 years in Jerusalem. I read that again. Verse 18. And he walked in the way of the kings of Israel, as did the house of Ahab, for the daughter of Ahab was his wife, and he did evil in the sight of Yahuwah. So he continued in all the sins, even Jeroboam's sin, okay, and all the other kings' sin while he was there, and he did evil in the sight of Yahuwah. Yet Yahuwah would not destroy Yehuda for David, his servant's sake, as he had promised him to take, or Dawood, we know we're talking about the king. He promised him to give him away a lamp and to his sons. In other words, keep Israel and not let it be destroyed, as he had promised Dawood, king of Israel. Verse 20. In his days Edom revolted from under the hand of Yehuda and made a king over themselves. So Joram went over to Zaire and all the chariots with him, and he arose by night and smote the Edomites and surrounded him, and the captains of the chariots and the people fled into their tents. Verse 22, yet Edom revolted from under the hand of Yehuda unto this day. Then Libnah revolted at the same time. So that revolt was going on up until the day this book was recorded. And the rest of the acts of Joram and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Yehuda? Verse 24, and Joram slept with his fathers and was buried with his fathers in the city of Dawood, and Ahaziah, his ben or son, reigned in his stead. In the 20th year of Joram, the ben of Ahab. I'm sorry. In the 12th, I misread that. In the 12th year of Joram, the ben of Ahab, king of Israel, did Ahaziah, the ben of Jehoram, king of Yehuda, began to reign. 26. 22 years old was Ahaziah when he began to reign, and he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Athaliah, the daughter of Omri, king of Israel. Verse 27, and he walked in the way of the house of Ahab and did evil in the sight of Yahuwah, okay, as did the house of Ahab, and he was the son-in-law in Hebrew of the house of Ahab. 28, and he went with Joram, the ben of Ahab, to war against Hazael, king of Syria, in Ramoth Gilead, and the Syrians wounded Joram. 29, and King Joram went back to be healed in Jezreel of the wounds which the Syrians had given him at Ramah, when he fought against Hazael, king of Assyria, and Ahaziah, the son of Joram, king of Yehuda, went down to see Joram, the ben of Ahab, in Jezreel, because he was wounded. Says sick in the King James, he was wounded. Okay, chapter 29. And Elisha, Elisha, I keep wanting to do that Middle English pronunciation. And Elisha, the prophet, called one of the ben of the prophets and said unto him, bind up your loins, or your waist. That's what that's speaking of here. In other words, put on a belt. And take this box of oil in your hand and go to Ramoth Gilead. Verse 2. And when you come there, look out there Yehu, the ben of Jehoshaphat, the ben of Nimshi, and go in and make him get up from among his brethren and carry him to the inner room. Then take the flask of oil and pour it on his head and say, Thus saith Yahuwah, I anoint you king over Israel. Then open the door and flee and don't stay. Don't hang around. So the young man, the prophet, went to Ramoth Gilead, and when he came, behold, the captains of the army were sitting, and he said, I have a message for you, O captain. And Yehu said, unto which of all of us, or who is the message for? And he said, to you, O captain. Verse 6, and he arose and went into the house, and he poured the oil on his head, and said unto him, Thus saith Yahuwah Elohim of Israel, I have anointed you king over the people of Yahuwah, even over Israel. And you shall strike the house of Ahab your master, that I may avenge the blood of my servants, the prophets, and the blood of all the servants of Yahuwah at the hand of Jezebel. For the whole house of Ahab shall perish, and I have cut off from Ahab him that pisseth against the wall, in other words, all the males, and him that is shut up and left in Israel. And I will make the house of Ahab like the house of Jeroboam. Okay, we were just talking about him, the son of Nebat. And like the house of Baasha, the ben of Ahiah. Verse 10, and the dogs shall eat Jezebel in the portion of Jezebel, and there shall be none to bury her. And he opened the door and fled, just like he was told, don't stick around. Okay. Then Yehu came forth to the servants of his master, and one said unto him, Is everything okay? Wherefore, why came this mad fellow, this crazy guy, to you? And he said unto them, You know the man and his talk. Okay, it says communication in the King's James. You know the man and his talk. It's just talk. That's what they're saying. And they said, It's false. It's a lie. Tell us now. And he said, Thus and this and this spake he to me, saying, Thus saith Yahuwah, I have anointed you king over Israel. Then they hurried and took every man his garment and put it under on the top of the stairs and blew with trumpets, saying, Yehu is king. So Yehu, the son of Jehoshaphat, the ben of Jehoshaphat, and the ben of Nimshi, plotted against Joram. Now this is added, okay, all the way down to the word, second time Syria is mentioned. Now Joram had kept Ramoth Gilead, he and all Israel, because of Hazael, king of Syria. But King Joram was returned to be healed in Jezreel of the wounds which the Syrians had given him. The second time it's talked about this, when he fought with Hazael, king of Syria. End of the addition. Back to the scripture again. And Yehu said, If it be your minds, then let none go forth nor escape out of the city to go tell it in Jezreel. So Yehu rode in a chariot and went to Jezreel, for Joram lay there, and Hazael, I'll say that right one of these days, king of Yehuda, was come down to see Joram. Verse 17, and there stood a watchman on the tower in Jezreel, and he spied the company of Yehu as he came, and said, I see a company. And Joram said, take a horseman and send to meet them, and let him say, do you come in peace? Verse 18. So there went one on horseback to meet him, and said, thus saith the king, do you come in peace? And Jehu said, what have you to do with peace? Turn you behind me. And the watchman told, saying, the Malach come to meet them, but he comes not again. Verse 19, then he sent out a second on horseback, which came to them, and said, thus saith the king, do you come in peace? And Jehu answered, what has you to do with peace? Turn you behind me. And the watchman told, saying, he came even to unto them, and comes not again. And the driving is like the driving of Jehu the son of Nimshi, for he driveth furiously. He's coming in a hurry. And all the men that were going out were turning with and going with him, following Jehu, instead of returning with the message. So 21, and Joram said, make ready, and his chariots was made ready, and Joram, king of Israel, and Ahijah, never mind, I'm not going to try that again, king of Yehuda, went out, each in his chariot, and they went out against Jehu, and found him in the portion of Naboth, the Jezreelite. Verse 22, and it came to pass, when Joram saw Jehu, that he said, do you come in peace, Jehu? And he answered, what peace, so long as the whoredoms of your mother Jezebel and her witchcraft are so many. In other words, okay, as long as she's there, why would I come in peace? Okay, verse 23, and Joram turned his hands and fled and said, Ahijah, there is treason. Ahijah, verse 24. And Jehu drew a bow with his full strength and struck Jehoram between his arms, right in the chest, and the arrow went out his heart, or went through his heart, and he sank down in his chariot. Then said Jehu to Bidkar, his captain, take up and cast him in the portion of the field of Naboth, the Jezreelite. For remember how that when I had you ride together with Ahab his father, Yahuwah had laid his burden upon me. And here's what Yahuwah had told him in verse 26. Surely I have seen yesterday the blood of Naboth and the blood of his Ben, saith Yahuwah, and I will require you in this plat of land, saith Yahuwah. Now therefore, take and cast him into the plat of ground according to the word of Yahuwah. Verse 27, and Ahaziah, I said it right that time, the king of Yehuda, saw this. He fled by the way of the garden house, and Jehu followed after him and said, strike him also in the chariot. And they did so at the going up of Gur, which is by Ibleam, and he fled to Megiddo and died there. And his servants carried him in a chariot to Jerusalem and buried him in his tomb with his fathers in the city of Dawood. Verse 29, and in the 11th year of Joram, the ben of Ahab, began Ahijah to reign over Yehuda. And when Jehu was come to Jezebel heard of it, and she painted her face. or adorned her face, could have been the translation. So I guess she put on makeup. and adorned her head. I think she put makeup on her eyes. That's better. In Hebrew, she painted her eyes. She put makeup on her eyes, and she adorned her head. She probably combed her hair and looked out at a window. Verse 31, and as Jehu entered in at the gate, she said, had Zimri peace? Who slew his master? Verse 32, and he lifted up his face to the window and said, who is on my side? Who? And there looked out to him two of their eunuchs. And that should have been translated as officers there, okay? Instead of eunuchs. Officers, officials. I'm sorry, officials, not officers. Verse 33, and he said, throw her down. So they threw her down, and some of her blood was sprinkled on the wall and on the horses, and he trampled her underfoot. And that's talking obviously about Jezebel. And obviously they had called her a witch because she was doing witchcraft. Okay? Verse 34, and when he was come in, he did eat and drink and said, go, see now this cursed woman and bury her, for she is a king's daughter. Verse 35, and they went to bury her, but they found no more of her than the skull and the feet and the palms of her hands. Remember what Yahuwah said was going to happen to her? The dog was going to eat her. Okay, so I'm assuming that's exactly what happened. Therefore they came again and said and told him, and he said, this is the word of Yahuwah which he spake by his servant Elijah the Tishbite, saying, in the portion or in the territory of Jezreel shall dogs eat the flesh of Jezebel. Okay, said that earlier, just repeating it again. Okay, and the carcass of Jezebel shall be as dung upon the face of the field in the portion of Jezreel, so they shall not say, this is Jezebel's. Okay, chapter 10. And Ahab had 70 men in Samaria, and Jehu wrote letters and sent to Samaria unto the rulers of Jezreel, to the elders and to them that bought up Ahab's Ben, saying, now, as soon as this letter comes to you, seeing your master's Ben are with you, and there are with you chariots and horses, fortified city, also and armor. Choose the best, most worthy of your master's Ben, and set him on his father's throne, and fight for your master's house. But they were exceedingly afraid, and said, behold, 2 kings could not resist him. How then shall we stand? Verse 5, and he that was over the house, and he that was over the city, the elders also, and bringers up of the Ben, sent to Jehu, saying, we are your servants, and will do all that you shall bid us, or all that you ask us. We will not make any king, do you which is good in your eyes. Then he wrote a letter the second time to them, saying, if you be mine, or if you be on my side, and if you will listen unto my voice, take you the heads of the men of your masters, Ben or sons, and come to me in Jezreel by tomorrow this time. Now the king's Ben, being 70 people, were with the great men of the city which brought them up. And it came to pass, when the letter came to them, that they took the king's Ben and slew 70 people and put their heads in baskets, and some brutal things, in baskets, and sent them to Jezreel. And there came a Malach and told him, saying, they have brought the heads of the king's Ben And he said, lay you them in 2 heaps at the entrance in the gate until the morning. But it's according to thus saith Yahuwah. So it sounds like a terrible thing, but it's on because of their father's sin. Okay. And it came to pass in the morning that he went out and stood and said to all the people, you be just. Behold, I conspired against my master and slew him. But who slew all these? Know now that there shall fall into the earth nothing of the word of Yahuwah. In other words, whatever Yahuwah says, not one bit will come back void. Okay? Everything Yahuwah says is going to happen to the T. Okay? Which Yahuwah spake concerning the house of Ahab. That's what I was just saying. That's why these terrible things happen. For Yahuwah hath done that which he spake by his servant Elijah. Okay? Prophecy fulfilled. So Jehu slew all that remained of the house of Ahab and Jezreel, and all his great men, and his close relatives, or his close friends even, and his priests, and until he left him none remaining. And he arose and departed, and came to Samaria, and as he was at the shearing house in the way, Jehumit, with the brethren of Ahaziah, king of Yehuda, said, who are you? And they answered, we are the brethren of Ahaziah, and we go down to greet the sons of the king and the sons of the queen. Verse 14, and he said, take them alive. And they took them alive, and slew them at the pit of the shearing house, even 42 men, or 42 men, neither left he any of them. And when he had departed from there, he came upon Jehonadab, the ben of Rechab, coming to meet him, and he greeted him and said to him, is your heart right, as my heart is with your heart? And Jehonadab answered, it is. If it be, give me your hand. And he gave him his hand, and he took him up to him into the chariot. And he said, come with me and see my zeal for Yahuwah. So they made him ride in his chariot. And when he came to Samaria, he slew all that remained unto Ahab in Samaria, till he had destroyed him, according to the saying of Yahuwah, which he spake to Elijah. Okay? And Jehu gathered all the people together and said unto them, Ahab served Baal, okay, or the Lord, okay, a little, but Jehu shall serve him much. Verse 19, now therefore call unto me all the prophets of the Lord, or Baal, all his servants, and all his priests, let none be missing. The wanting should have been translated, let none be missing. For I have a great sacrifice to do to Baal, or to the Lord. Okay, that's what Baal means. Whosoever shall be wanting, he shall not live. But Jehu did it in subtlety, okay, or he was trying to trick them, to the intent that he might destroy the worshipers of the Lord, or Baal, okay. So he's trying to get them all to come together. He's offering his sacrifice so he can get them to come together so he can kill them, okay. And Jehu said, proclaim a solemn assembly, or a holy convocation, okay. In other words, come together for Baal. And again, that could be translated the Lord. Okay? And they proclaimed it. And Jehu sent through all Israel, and all the worshipers of Baal, or the Lord, came, so that there was not a man left that came not. And they came unto the house of Baal, or the Lord, and the house of Baal, or of the Lord, was full from one end to the other. Kind of like when you go into a big cathedral in a church today, okay? They're just like all assembled there, and they're a lot of times they're on the first day of the week, so I don't know what else how you would consider that, okay? They'd be there to worship the Lord or Baal in this case, okay? And Jehu went and Jehonadab, the ben of Rechab, into the house of Baal, or the house of the Lord. See, this is where, the use of the word the Lord is really brought to light if you're willing to see it, okay? Because the word Baal, look it up in your Strong's Concordance, means the Lord, okay? And they've replaced the word, with the word Yahuwah, Jehovah, or what the tetragrammaton with the word Lord. So that's where we got to be careful with how we use our words, okay? Because these people here were worshiping the Baal, okay? In Hebrew, that means the Lord. But the worshipers of Baal only, okay? Let me go back. And Jehu went into Jehonadab, the ben of Rechab, unto the house of Baal, or the house of the Lord, and said unto the worshipers of the Lord, search and look, and there be here with you none of the servants of Yahuwah. Make sure there's none of the servants of Yahuwah mixed in with the servants of Baal, or the Lord. Okay? Verse 24. And when they went in to offer sacrifices and burnt offerings, Jehu appointed 80 men without, and said, if any of the men whom I have brought into your hands escape, he that lets him go, his life shall be for the life of him. So in other words, you better not let any go. We're going to kill you if you let him get out. Verse 25, and it came to pass as soon as he had made an end of offering the burnt offering, that Jehu said, guard, and to the captains, go in and slay them. Let none come forth. And they struck them with the edge of the sword. And the guard and the captains cast them out, and went to the city of the house of Baal, or the Lord. And they brought forth the images out of the house of the Lord, and buried them, and burned them. 27, and they break down the image of the Lord, and break down the house of the Lord, and made it a latrine. Everybody know what a latrine is? A place where you take a leak. Okay? So we make it clear unto this day, until the day this book was written, now obviously. Verse 29, however, from the 28, thus Jehu destroyed the Lord, or the Baal out of Israel. However, from the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin, we know what that sin is. It keeps repeating that, because he made two images of calves, golden calves, just like Aaron did, okay, back in the Exodus, okay. So here we are, they're continuing in this sin of Jeroboam of Nebat. He also made a feast like unto the Feast of Tabernacles in the 8th month. That's the great sin. It all fits together. Jehu departed not from after them. So in other words, he kept doing that. Now listen, that is the golden calves that were in Bethel. He didn't destroy them, that I was just talking about, okay? And obviously they were keeping the feast in the 8th month instead of in the 7th month, as Yahuwah had commanded. And that was in Dan, okay, the land of Dan. Verse 30. And Yahuwah said unto Jehu, because you hast done well in executing that which is right in my eyes, and has done unto the house of Ahab according to all that was in my heart, your sons of the 4th generation shall sit on the throne of Israel. That's the reward Jehu was going to get, because he had done such a magnificent thing. He had and done everything to the sons of Ahab. He had destroyed all the worshipers of Baal. at least that he knew of, okay, all the worshipers of Baal, and cleaned them all out, and that was his reward. Verse 31, but Jehu took no heed to walk in the law of Yahuwah Elohim of Israel with all his heart. For he departed not from the sins of Jeroboam, which made Israel to sin. So even though he did all that, he still kept on worshiping those two calves, okay, in Bethel, and not going down to Jerusalem to keep the feast. Okay, verse 32, in those days Yahuwah began to cut Israel short, okay, or reduce its size. And Hazael struck or attacked them in all their borders of Israel. So they were being attacked from every side. From Jordan eastward in the land of Gilead, and the Gadites, and the Reubenites, and the Manassites, from Aor, which is by the valley of Arnon, even Gilead and Bashan. Now the rest of the acts of Jehu and all that he did, and all his might, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel? We're going to find out, because we're going to go through them as well. And Jehu slept with his fathers, and they buried him in Samaria, and Jehoahaz his Ben reigned in his stead, and the time that Jehu reigned over Israel in Samaria was 28 years. And we're going to stop her right there, and that's right about an hour. Pretty good. And hopefully everybody got something out of this message, okay, today. So may Yahuwah bless until we meet again. And also, don't forget to go to YouTube and hit subscribe and hit the bell so you get the notification when the next message comes up. We really like to drive up those subscribers. I know a lot of you watch us on Facebook, and if you watch us on Facebook, the numbers don't always get added to our YouTube channel. So if you go in and subscribe and then hit that notification bell, that'll all get counted. Again, may Yahuwah bless until we meet again.